Our first presenter tonight is Ian MacKenzie. Ian MacKenzie is a new media producer from Port Moody and a graduate from Simon Fraser University in the Faculty of Communication. He has shot and produced a number of video journalism segments dealing with topics as diverse as eco-consumerism, peak oil, and music culture. His television work has appeared on the Open Learning Network, City TV, and National Geographic. In 2010, he released his first documentary feature, 1 Week Job, an inspirational story about a guy who worked 52 jobs in 52 weeks to find his passion. The project received widespread media attention and was featured in the New York Times and on CNN. In early 2011, the film was aired on the CBC Documentary Channel. Ian has also created a variety of online projects, including Let Me On Survivor, in which he tried to convince the Americans to let him on Survivor. I'd now like to invite Ian MacKenzie up. Thank you.
Hello, and thanks for coming. Tonight I want to talk to you about a massive shift that is currently happening in the way art is created. This includes music, photography, literature, and for myself, film. This shift is called crowdfunding, and it has evolved from a variety of factors, which I will outline tonight. But first, I'd like to share with you a story about Sean Aiken. In 2007, Sean graduated from college and realized he had no idea what to do with his life. So he decided to find his passion. He launched the 1 Week Job project. He would work any job anywhere in North America. After 1 week, he'd move on. And if that sounds impossible, well, he actually did it. Sean successfully worked 52 jobs over the course of the year, everything from a florist, a bungee jumping instructor, a cowboy, a fashion buyer, and more. I joined Sean halfway through his journey and began filming the project. Now, I don't have time to share with you the entire journey, but suffice to say, we were able to complete the project, and we did it spending very little money. Turns out, complete strangers would offer us rides in their car. Employers would offer us a place to sleep and even feed us. It was incredible. We were tapping into what I call latent wealth. Latent wealth is a little bit of riches that each of us has to offer. On our own, it may not look like much, but if everyone offers something, suddenly great things are able to happen. So we decided to make a documentary after the project. I was just a hobby filmmaker at the time, and it would have been difficult for me to get funding from traditional channels like broadcasters and government grants. Even if I was an experienced filmmaker, it still would have been difficult. That's because of the way the current media industry is structured, which I'll quickly explain. A few large corporations control the vast majority of what type of media is created. Companies like Fox, NBC, and Disney, and more, decide what films should be popular, what music we should hear, and what stories should be told. Here in Canada, we have big companies like Bell Media, Rogers, and Shaw. The gatekeepers at the top of these companies, they decide where to invest the money. Artistic creators like musicians and filmmakers basically rely on these big companies to finance their projects, which often means they give up control. Then, after the film or album is complete, it is sold to the masses. This model has worked for approximately 75 years, but the model is now changing. Perhaps you've heard of the internet and something called illegal downloading. This has cut into the profits of those big corporations. First, the music industry, then the film industry, and more recently, the book industry are caught in a downward spiral. As the cost of sharing something is essentially free, it becomes difficult to make strangers pay for it. Yet, at its core, the internet is a way of fostering communication. More so than that. That's particularly true with tools like Facebook and Twitter. There's a reason they call it social networking. It's because you're able to create relationships with people you may never meet or will never meet. Yet with this new connection, it's now possible to help each other out. This is Stephen Harper. No, Stephen Harper is not my Facebook friend. But you may remember the Harper government brought in massive arts cuts a few years ago, while broadcasters are increasingly not buying documentary films, and theaters are only interested in showing films that rhyme with Pirates of the Caribbean. So to finance the 1 Week Job film, we decided to use the emergent phenomenon known as crowdfunding. Here's how it works. You create a project on a crowdfunding website like Kickstarter.com. This site was launched 2 years ago, built on the idea that if everyone chipped in a little bit, you would have enough to make something. While it sounds a bit like collecting donations, the internet has amplified this model exponentially. So I went ahead and created our project. And I spread the word to family and friends and fans of the project. From 2 separate campaigns, we were able to raise over $6,000, which certainly was not enough to complete an entire documentary, but it allowed us to further the project until eventually we completed it. The film is now available off our website, and it actually aired on the CBC this past January. Sean and I have also completed a huge spring tour across Canada, speaking at colleges and universities, sharing his story and the lessons learned along the way. All in all, we were able to visit 42 campuses, so a big success. After a 1-week job, I joined another director for his new film. The director, Velcro Ripper, is well known in the Canadian scene for his award-winning films like Scared Sacred, about visiting the ground zeros of the world, and Fierce Light, When Spirit Meets Action. The third film in his trilogy, currently in production, is called Evolve Love, and it asks the question, how can the climate crisis become a great love story? Here's a filmmaker that has numerous award-winning films under his belt, and yet so far has been unable to get traditional funding. Instead, we decided to try a Kickstarter campaign. Our goal was to raise $25K, enough money to film at the Cancun Climate Summit last November, and further shoots around the world. We gave ourselves 3 weeks. With Kickstarter, you need to raise the full amount of money or you get nothing. This prevents people from not having enough money to complete a project. So in Cancun, we actually made it. We made enough by spreading the word to actually raise $27,000, which makes it the most successful Canadian crowdfunding campaign ever. It was an amazing 3 weeks that showed that people really want to have this film in the world, which brings me back to the model I showed you before, the hierarchical model of the traditional media system. This new model of crowdfunding is one example of a new horizontal, co-creative model that allows an artist to connect directly with their audience. Whereas before you would pay for a product after it is produced, now you can pay by investing early, and you can participate in the co-creation. The people decide what projects they want to see, not large corporations. To give you an example of further successful projects, Carbon City on the left is a new book that aims to show you what a carbon-neutral city actually looks like. La Source in the middle is a film about a Haitian that goes back to his village to create a secure water system. And Diaspora, the third one, is a Facebook alternative, which has raised over $200,000. So the stats. All in all, in 2 years, Kickstarter has had over 20,000 projects proposed, 43% funded, which I actually didn't know until I looked these up. It's incredible. They have raised over $53 million, and a total number of 591,000 people have been involved. And consider, this model is still in its infancy. When it becomes the norm for fans to invest early, I think these numbers will rise exponentially. And it's important to know in closing that this is just one piece of a much larger shift that's going on, where we're tapping into this idea of latent wealth. We have much more to share, such as our knowledge, our backyard gardens, our rides to work, and even sharing our homes. So as the poet Drew Dillinger says, the future belongs to the most compelling story. So I thank you tonight for listening to mine.